It was a Tuesday morning, one of those quiet, cloud-covered days where the world feels too still, like it's holding its breath. I remember because I woke up to the smell of his cologne on the pillow beside me. That scent, that soft blend of cedar and something uniquely his, should have made me feel safe. Instead, it left a hollow ache in my chest I couldn't explain. He was gone. No note, no text, no bouvier. His name was Ryan, and for 5 years, he was my whole world. Not in the obsessive, movie-style way, but in the quiet, day-to-day comfort of loving someone who knew how to hold space for your silence. We met in college, bonded over late-night ramen and vinyl records. While I chased my dreams of opening a little book cafe, he was a freelance photographer, always chasing the perfect shot, the perfect light, the perfect moment. He had this way of looking at people, like he could see their story before they even spoke a word. And yet, somehow, I never saw his. The night before he left, we had dinner like normal, laughed about a couple fighting on a reality show, made plans to go hiking that weekend. He kissed me on the forehead before we went to sleep. And then, just like that, he was gone. His clothes, his camera, everything, like he'd never existed. At first, I thought something terrible had happened. I filed a police report. I called every hospital, every friend, even his estranged sister who hadn't heard from him in years. Nothing. He'd vanished. Weeks turned into months. Everyone around me started to move on. My best friend Jenna told me I needed to let go, that sometimes people just leave, but people don't just leave. Not like that. Not without a word. Not when they've seen you at your worst, held your hand through panic attacks, memorized your coffee order. Not when they told you they wanted a future with you. The silence hurt more than any argument ever could. Eventually, I stopped talking about him. I buried the memories and poured myself into my cafe. The quiet rhythm of work was healing in its own way. Customers, coffee beans, inventory lists. It was predictable, safe, and slowly, the wound turned into a scar. Until one day, 5 years later, I saw his face again. It was a random Sunday afternoon. Business was slow, and I was wiping down tables when a couple walked in with a little girl trailing behind them. The woman had kind eyes and a warm smile, and I greeted them the same way I greeted everyone else. But then the man turned around. Time stopped. It was Ryan, older, his beard fuller, his hair a bit shorter. But those eyes, I would know those eyes anywhere. He froze when he saw me, and in that moment, I saw it, the flash of pain, of guilt, of recognition. But he didn't say anything. He just turned back to the woman and guided her toward a table. My heart slammed against my ribs. My throat tightened. I couldn't breathe. I stumbled to the back room, hands shaking, heart racing, 1,000 questions clawing at my mind. What was he doing here? Who was that woman? And that little girl, no. She had his eyes. He had a family. And still no goodbye. Why'd he left? What was so big, so painful, that he couldn't even tell me? I had no answers. Only a name I hadn't spoken aloud in years, echoing in my mind. Ryan, the man who left me without a goodbye, was now sitting just 10 feet away, and I had no idea what I was supposed to do next. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the sink in the back room, willing my breath to slow down. The familiar rush of anxiety from years ago came flooding back, like my body remembered the trauma even when I had tried so hard to forget it. Ryan, here, in my cafe, with a woman and child, a family. I stared into the scratched mirror hanging above the sink, trying to gather myself. I didn't want him to see me like this, shaken, broken, undone. But how could I not be? The man who shattered me, without a word, had just walked back into my life like he'd never left. And now he was sitting only steps away, sipping coffee with someone else. 5 years ago, he was the man I thought I'd marry. We had dreams, plans, long conversations about baby names, late-night talks about where we'd live. He wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to create a little corner of it that felt like home. We promised we'd find a way to balance both. But all of that ended the day he disappeared without a trace. I stepped out of the back room slowly, forcing myself to act normal. My barista, Ellie, shot me a concerned glance, but I waved it off. My eyes locked onto his table. He sat across from the woman. His wife, maybe? The little girl was drawing on a napkin with a crayon. Ryan laughed softly at something she said, and it hit me harder than I expected. That laugh used to belong to us. I walked past their table casually, trying not to stare, pretending I was checking on other customers. But when I was behind him, I stopped for just a second, just long enough for him to feel me there. He looked up, slowly, as if bracing for something. Our eyes met again. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but I walked away. I wasn't ready. Later that evening, after the cafe closed, I sat at one of the back booths alone. The lights were dim, the city outside beginning to settle into night. Ellie had left. It was just me and my thoughts, and too many questions I couldn't silence. I needed answers, but part of me wasn't sure I could handle them. I reached for my phone and scrolled through old photos. Most of them were gone, deleted years ago when I tried to start fresh. But one folder remained, locked away, untouched. I opened it. His smile. That camera always in his hand. Us, tangled in blankets, blurry selfies from beach trips. A life we'd built that ended like a ghost story. No goodbye, just a haunting. And now, he was here. Why? Had he always lived in this city? Had he been nearby all along? Or was this just some cruel twist of fate? I thought about confronting him, about walking up and demanding the truth. But what if I wasn't ready for it? What if the truth was worse than the silence? And more than that, what if he pretended I never mattered? But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. You don't look at someone the way he looked at me in that moment unless the past still holds weight. I tried to sleep that night, but the questions kept me awake. Why did you leave, Ryan? Was I not enough? Did you love me at all? The next morning, I arrived early to open the cafe. A part of me hoped it was just a one-time coincidence, that he'd vanish again, like before. But another part of me wasn't sure I wanted that. When I unlocked the front door, something stopped me. Sitting there on the welcome mat was a small envelope. No name, no address, just a plain, white envelope sealed with a faint smudge of what looked like charcoal dust, something only someone who worked with photography or sketching would leave behind. My heart thudded. I knew it was from him. Inside was a single sentence, written in his unmistakable handwriting. You deserve to know the truth. My hands went cold. My knees felt weak. And suddenly, the ground I had carefully rebuilt beneath me began to crack. The envelope sat on the counter like a ticking bomb. I must have read that one sentence a dozen times. You deserve to know the truth. But no number of reads could prepare me for what that truth might be. Was he dying? Was he protecting me from something all those years ago? Or was it just guilt that had finally caught up to him? For days, he didn't return. Not to the cafe. Not through another letter. Just silence. Again, it was starting to feel like a cruel pattern. Him reaching out, stirring everything up, and then vanishing before the dust settled. But this time, I wasn't the same girl who had collapsed into tears on the bathroom floor 5 years ago. This time, I had learned how to live without him. Still, I couldn't stop obsessing over that envelope. I carried it with me everywhere, folded and creased from being opened and closed again and again. I even started dreaming about him, twisted, blurry dreams where I chased him through endless corridors, only to watch him disappear behind locked doors. Jenna, my best friend, noticed the shift. One night after closing, she pulled me aside. You've been somewhere else lately, she said gently, handing me a glass of wine. It's about him, isn't it? I nodded. No words, just exhaustion. Jenna had never liked Ryan much. Not because of anything he did to her personally, but because of what his absence did to me. I saw him. I finally whispered. He came into the cafe with a woman and a kid. Jenna's eyes widened. Are you serious? He left a letter. I added, unfolding the now worn paper and handing it to her. She read it and frowned. "This could mean anything," she said. "But listen, don't let him drag you back into the dark without answers. If he wants to talk, make him talk. Don't just sit around waiting for the next cryptic note." She was right. So the next morning, I did something I never thought I would. I went looking for him. I remembered the name of the photography studio he used to work at. Maybe he still had connections there. Maybe someone knew where he was. When I arrived, the woman behind the front desk gave me a curious look when I asked about Ryan. "He hasn't worked here in years," she said, "but I can give you his last known business card. It has his freelance website and email." I took it with trembling fingers, heart pounding. The website was still active. It had a gallery of street photography, portraits, and travel work. But one album stopped me cold. "For her eyes only. Password protected." It could have meant anything, but deep in my gut, I knew it was for me. I sent him a short email. Subject: "I got your letter message. We need to talk. In person. No more games." He responded an hour later. "Tomorrow, 7 p.m., same place where we first met." My heart nearly stopped. The campus library. I hadn't been there in years. The next day felt endless. Every tick of the clock dragged, like it was testing me. At 6:45 p.m., I parked near the library and sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. What was I walking into? Was I prepared to hear what he'd kept from me for so long? And then I saw him, standing under the same tree where he'd once asked me to coffee all those years ago. He looked older, tired, but there was still something in his stance, like he was bracing himself too. I stepped out of the car, unsure of what to say. But before I could speak, he held up a hand. "There's something I need to show you," he said, voice low. "And once I do, you might hate me for good." The air thickened between us. Whatever this truth was, it was going to change everything. The last time I stood in front of Ryan, I was crying in our apartment doorway, calling his name into silence. This time, I wasn't crying. Not yet. But my heart pounded like it was trying to warn me. This is it. This was the moment I'd imagined for years. The confrontation, the answers, the truth. But I hadn't imagined it would feel this terrifying. "I don't even know where to start," he said quietly. "Then just say it," I replied, voice tight. "Why did you leave me like that? No call, no letter, nothing. Do you know what that did to me?" His eyes dropped to the ground. "Ido, I know, and I'm sorry for everything. But I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I thought I was protecting you." "Protecting me?" I scoffed. "From what?" "From you." His silence was answer enough. I felt something inside me start to crack. "You don't get to decide what I need protection from, Ryan. You don't disappear without explanation and then show up 5 years later with a child and think that sorry covers it." He looked up sharply. "She's not mine. That's my sister's daughter. The woman with me, Sophia, she's not my partner. She's my sister-in-law. She helped raise her after my brother died." I blinked. "Your brother?" He nodded. "A year before I left, my brother was diagnosed with a rare degenerative disease. It progressed fast. At the same time, I started noticing symptoms myself. The same ones. Doctors said it was likely genetic. I didn't tell anyone, not even you. I felt the ground shifting beneath me. "You thought you had the same illness?" I asked slowly. "I didn't want you to watch me waste away. I couldn't let you go through that. Not after everything you gave up for me. So I made it easy for you to hate me instead. I thought if I disappeared, you'd move on. You'd be okay. But you were wrong," I whispered. "I didn't move on. I shattered. You look like you might break. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." "And the illness?" I asked, barely breathing. Do you still have it?" He shook his head. "They misdiagnosed me. What I had was completely different. Treatable. It took months to get the full truth. By the time I did, I thought too much damage had been done to reach back out. I figured you'd moved on. Maybe hated me. So I stayed away. Hot tears threatened to fall, but I held them back. You let me believe you were dead. Or worse. that I wasn't even worth a goodbye. I grieved someone who was still breathing, Ryan. His voice cracked. I thought I was doing the right thing. But the truth is, I was scared. Of dying. Of being seen as weak. Of losing control. But mostly of losing you while still holding on. He stepped closer, eyes begging for something I didn't know if I could give. I came back because I couldn't live with the silence anymore. I had to see you, to tell you the truth. And if you never want to see me again after this, I'll understand. But I owed you that. I looked at him, really looked. He wasn't the same man I knew 5 years ago. He was older, sadder, but still him. Still the man who once made me believe in forever. The weight of it all settled in my chest like a stone. Anger, grief, heartbreak, all tangled together. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this, I whispered. You don't have to do anything, he said. But if you want to ask more, if you want to scream or cry or walk away, I'll take it. Just don't let me disappear again without knowing what you feel. I couldn't speak. The words stuck in my throat. All I knew was that this wasn't the end. It couldn't be, because for the first time in 5 years, the truth was finally in front of me. And I didn't know if I was ready to forgive him, but I wasn't ready to walk away either. I stood there for what felt like forever, trying to absorb everything Ryan had just said. The disease, the fear, the lie he told himself, that leaving me would somehow protect me. The anger still simmered in my chest, but underneath it, a flicker of understanding had begun to stir. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something close. He glanced at the bench near the old library steps and gestured for us to sit. We didn't talk at first. The wind rustled through the leaves, and in that silence, I could almost hear the version of us that once existed here, laughing, dreaming, whole. I need to show you something, he said finally. It's about your father. My body went stiff. What? He looked away, almost ashamed. That night, I left. I didn't just walk out on you. I want to see someone first. Him. I stared at him, stunned. You into my father? Why? You never even met him. I had to, Ryan said, his voice tight. Because he contacted me first. What are you talking about? Ryan pulled something from his backpack. A thin folder with weathered pages and folded letters. Your dad reached out to me a week before I disappeared. He told me to leave you. I blinked, heart pounding. That doesn't make any sense. Why would he? Because he knew about my health scare. I don't know how. Maybe he had someone keeping tabs on us. He told me if I truly cared about you, I'd walk away. That staying would only ruin your future. I shook my head in disbelief. You're telling me my father, who barely tolerated you, convinced you to vanish from my life without even letting me choose? He didn't just convince me, Ryan said quietly. He threatened me. Silence. What? I said slowly, barely able to form the word. He said he'd ruin my career. Said he'd make sure no gallery or studio would ever work with me again. That he'd tell people things about me. False things, damaging things. He even hinted that he'd cut off your funding if you stayed with me. I thought he was bluffing until I saw the power he had. I stood up, my breath shallow. You let him control you? You let him decide our future. I was young and scared, Ryan admitted. And I thought maybe he was right. Maybe I wasn't enough for you. Maybe I would have dragged you down. And when the doctor started warning me about a possible diagnosis, I cracked. I broke. I left. I turned away from him, everything spinning. My father, my own father, had orchestrated this. And I had never known. I thought Ryan had been the one to destroy me. But now the man who was supposed to protect me might have been the one who truly betrayed me. I thought I hated you, I whispered, for years. But you were being manipulated, threatened, sick, and he just let me believe it was all on you. I didn't want you to ever find out. But after I saw you again, I realized the only way to ever make it right was to give you the whole truth, even the parts that hurt. I turned back toward him, tears in my eyes now, not just from pain, but from the rage of a truth buried for years. My father had died 2 years ago. I never had the chance to confront him. But now, everything I thought I knew about my past, about my heartbreak, had shifted. I needed to know this, I said quietly, even if it tears everything apart. Ryan stood too, looking at me with a sadness I couldn't read. So, where does this leave us? I didn't know. The only thing I knew was this story wasn't just about a man who left me. It was about everything I never knew I'd lost until now. The folder was still in my hand as we walked in silence, the shadows of campus stretching longer with every step. I couldn't stop thinking about all the years I'd spent angry at Ryan, only to discover the real damage had come from someone I trusted my whole life, my father. How do you begin to grieve the truth when it hits after the person is gone? How do you forgive someone you can't confront? Ryan walked beside me quietly, keeping his distance, as if he knew I needed space to process the weight of it all. His confession had shifted everything. The anger was still there, but now it was tangled in grief, betrayal, and something more dangerous. What if I'd been wrong about him all along? We stopped near the campus fountain, that same spot where we once sat after finals, laughing about how broke we were and daydreaming about Paris. That memory stung now, because for the first time in years, I let myself feel it. Not through bitterness, through loss. I turned to him. All this time, I thought I hated you. I blamed you for everything. I let you, he said, because I didn't think I deserved your forgiveness. My voice wavered. You could have told me. Even after the threats, after the diagnosis turned out wrong, you could have come back. I was ashamed, he admitted, not just of leaving, but of how easily I broke. I let fear run my life. And when I realized what I'd done, I convinced myself you were better off. Tears welled in my eyes. I wasn't. He took a slow step forward. I never stopped loving you. That's the only thing I've been sure of every single day. The weight of his words hung in the air like thunder before a storm. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the truth in his eyes. Not the boy I remembered, but the man who'd carried guilt on his back for years, who had broken under pressure but came back anyway, not to win me back, but to be honest. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, voice soft but steady. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. He nodded, his jaw clenched like he was holding back the urge to cry. That's okay. I just needed you to know the truth. What you do with it, that's yours. I took a shaky breath. Do you still have that photo album? The one on your site, for her eyes only? His lips lifted slightly. Yes, and only you know the password. I thought for a moment, then whispered blueberry. He exhaled a soft laugh. Still your favorite pancake topping? I nodded, blinking back tears. Always. It wasn't a reconciliation. Not yet. But it was something. A crack in the wall we'd built, wide enough for light to start pouring through. I'm not saying we can go back to who we were, I told him, because I don't even know who that was anymore. He stepped closer, this time not hesitating. Then maybe we figure out who we are now. And just when I thought the night had revealed all its truths, Ryan looked down at the folder again, then back at me. There's one more thing I didn't tell you, he said, voice low. The night I went to your father, I recorded the conversation. My breath caught. He didn't just threaten me, Ryan continued. He said something about you, about something he was hiding, something you never knew. What? I asked, a cold shiver climbing my spine. Ryan hesitated. I didn't listen to the full tape. I couldn't, but I've kept it. And if you want, we can hear it together. The wind picked up as he pulled a small USB drive from his coat pocket. Suddenly, the conflict between us wasn't the only truth unraveling. There was more. Something my father had buried. Something that could change not just how I saw Ryan, but how I saw everything. Ryan and I sat side by side on the edge of the campus fountain. The night had deepened, wrapping everything in a quiet stillness, as if the world itself was holding its breath with us. In my hand was the USB drive. Inside it, answers I never expected and maybe wasn't ready for. I want to hear it, I finally said. I need to know what he was hiding from me. We drove in silence to my apartment. The air between us was heavy, not with resentment anymore, but with fear. Fear of one final truth changing everything again. I plugged the drive into my laptop and clicked on a file. The audio was crackly, old, but unmistakable. It was my father's voice. Ryan, you don't know her like I do. She doesn't need to be caught in your mess. You're unstable, sick. You'll ruin her future like her mother ruined mine. Ryan's voice responded, confused. What does her mother have to do with anything? A pause. Then my father said something that froze the blood in my veins. She was never supposed to be mine. I knew it the day she was born. But I raised her anyway. And if she finds out, she'll never forgive either of us. My heart dropped. The air vanished from the room. Ryan looked at me, stunned, but said nothing. He didn't need to. I already understood. My father wasn't my biological father, and he had spent years trying to control every piece of my life, who I loved, where I went, and what I believed, out of fear that his secret would come out. He hadn't just pushed Ryan away to protect me. He did it to protect himself. I sat back, eyes welling with tears. He lied to me my whole life. Ryan reached for my hand, gently, not to fix things, but just to be there. You didn't deserve any of that. I shook my head, still processing it all. And you didn't deserve to carry the blame for what he did. I see that now. We talked for hours that night. About the past, about the people we lost, about the versions of ourselves we had to let go of just to survive. The love we once had didn't just disappear. It changed. It aged. And somehow, despite everything, it still lived in the quiet between us. A few weeks later, we visited his studio together. For the first time, I opened the photo album titled For Her Eyes Only. Every photo was a moment we had shared, frozen in time, carefully preserved like a love letter never sent. Me laughing on a park bench, us slow dancing in our apartment, a photo of a tiny cafe sign I once said would be the name of my dream bookstore. And in the final photo, taken years after we had split, was a shot of the cafe I eventually opened. He had been watching from a distance, quietly rooting for me to rise. Why did you keep all this? I asked him, overwhelmed. Because even if I lost you, he said, I didn't want to forget how much you mattered. That's when I knew. We couldn't undo the pain, but we could honor the truth. We could rebuild, slowly, honestly, and only if we were both willing to be brave again. I didn't promise him forever that night, but I did promise this. I wouldn't run. Not anymore.